This is our interview with Mr. James Spooner, quite the Renaissance man. He has written a number of books, including the last one was kind of like a graphic novel. He also has done some artwork for our show
Yes, he
since
has.
season one. He is our current artist for the Decay podcast this year. He knocked it out of the park, and I think he does that with just about everything he does.
Yes, he does. So take it away.
I guess starting from the beginning, your early punk influences you list as Sex Pistols, Black Flag, and the Misfits. What do you think it was about their sound or message that really resonated with you as a young person?
Hmm. I mean, I think that those are like legendary kind of punk 101 bands for a reason, like they're they're the the angst that they were able to capture and kind of put in a bottle like very early on has resonated with generation after generation, right? So I'm not unique, or this isn't like a hot take for me to say that like those bands. Um, but I mean, I think okay, when I think about them individually, like I was probably first attracted to Misfits because of their like aesthetic, like the skulls and the I don't even know if I really knew what they looked like. Maybe I did from like posters or something, but they look like they would freak out your parents, and isn't that like what we were trying to do at
Of
that
course.
age?
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't even know what they were singing about because I don't think those cassettes had any lyric sheets. It was really hard to understand, but they said like "son of a bitch," or whatever.
Right.
you
Right.
know, that wasn't happening in pop music, and like hearing the Sex Pistols talk about like being an antichrist or whatever, that was even scary for me in eighth grade. Having gone to church my whole life or whatever, like,
Yeah.
but it also spoke to me in this way that was like, oh, like you can say that. Like I mean, I was never like a devil worshiper, but I didn't really believe what was going on in church. I just was afraid to say it. So to have somebody say it kind of opened that door. And I think really when it comes down to all of those early bands going through to, Dead Kennedys or Descendants or Minor Threat, like in different ways, they were saying things that as a 13-year-old, I just didn't know you could say, and uh and was like empowered by what they did say.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I guess that ultimately is like why I like all the music I like is, they're they're saying words that I'm like afraid to say, or
Yeah.
or like they are presenting a energy that speaks to me in a way that I might have trouble articulating otherwise.
Yeah. I remember when I was 14, I bought Plastic Surgery Disasters on vinyl. And when I brought it home, I read every note, every insert. And they had an insert in there about how to avoid the cops when you're doing graffiti. And I just remember thinking, God, I hope my parents don't find this. It was like porn. Like I felt like I
Yeah,
brought porn home. It was
yeah,
so bad, but so good.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. How to be a miscreant or just act like one.
And the one thing I remember is at the bottom it said, it wouldn't be illegal if it wasn't effective or something like that.
Yeah,
Like, oh, okay,
yeah,
whatever.
that's the kind of stuff. Those are the kind of messages that kids need,
Yeah.
grow up to be good adults.
Yep.
So, what do you think your most memorable shows that you went to were that you can think of?
Oh God, there's so many. Probably so like my first show in New York City in 91 when I moved there was Guar with Leeway and Chuck Treese from McRad. Um, and that was, I mean, that was exciting because that was like my first big show with like a band who's like I knew all the lyrics, and it wasn't like local.
Was that
Um,
Leeway where they toured on the first album?
It might have been the second record, like after
Okay.
they had like that Kingpin song
Yeah,
on
yeah. I think that was
MTV.
the later one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure they were playing some of that Born to Expire stuff, but I mean they were pretty new to me at the time, but
yeah,
it was a killer lineup, and like Guar of
yeah.
course puts on like a great show. Um but like the shows that really like made a huge impact on me um turned out to be more like local shows or smaller bands that you know that you could actually like be friends with, you know.
Right.
um so I have like really vivid fond memories of there is a band called Frail that they're actually like touring right now. But you know, 30 years ago, they were on tour with this other straight edge band called Chokehold. They're playing a barn in like Amish country in Pennsylvania, and it was just like it was that thing where like the crowd is so tight that it's kind of like moving in one as one
Oh, wow.
organism, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
this like this the music is like you feel like a locomotive and the whole place is
yeah,
moving
yeah,
and sweating and like we're just one thing. Like I wish I had a video from like a sky cam, you know, to
yeah,
just see that. But even inside of it you could feel what it must look like we're just like an ocean, you know.
yeah.
um so I mean there's so many different shows for so many different reasons that are um value. I mean, you know, there are shows that were just the opposite of that, where it's like literally like five people in the audience and the band, you know. I mean, I saw Elliott Smith play in my living room and there was 20 people there, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, you know, like that's the magic of the underground, right?
Yeah,
The
we
right.
like this place by us called the Metro because most of the time when they get off stage, they're back behind their merch
Yeah.
table. So you can go
Yeah.
buy a shirt, you know, talk to them, you know,
Get a
if you
picture.
get a picture, if
Yeah,
you really like them, you can, you know, we might invite them on the show. It's just a whole different experience.
yeah.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
part of the country are you in?
Baltimore.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that I think that that's really the heart of the underground. Once it gets too big, it's something else, you know.
Do you think there's any book, album, or film that kind of really influenced your creative path?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, you know, obviously I made the Afropunk documentary and I did that when I was like 25 and 2001 I started it. And the films that really influenced that film um in terms of like structure, pacing, editing were three. It was a lot of editing I learned from watching Dogtown Z Boys, um, which you know is very fast cut and very like you know kind of it was of the time. You know, it
Yeah.
definitely and I watched that movie like literally would watch it in slow motion to kind of like see how they did it and um, how they move things around or whatever. Um, there's in the Afropunk film there's a like it's kind of structured where you have like this chorus of people talking about you know let's say interracial dating, and then after that it goes to a one of the four protagonists and like we get to see like a slice of their life. And that chorus idea I got from a documentary called Watt Stacks, which everyone should see that movie. It is about like what they called Black Woodstock. It was like a big concert in Watts, California, in the probably early '70s, and it was like $1 in an arena, and it was all Stax recording artists. But they interviewed uh, people who lived in Watts, and they you know talking about different things like uh, you know, it'd be like an interview with a bunch of people at a barber shop and they're talking about like, you know, I don't know, like high fives or something. And it'd just be like a bunch of different people talking about that. And I definitely saw that. I saw that and definitely thought like I could lift that and put it,
Yeah.
it would work well for what I'm trying to do,
Yeah.
And thirdly, there was a documentary called Streetwise that it's about homeless kids in Seattle in the early 80s, and just the way that they shot that movie. I mean, it's totally a masterpiece. It's and I would just watch it and try to figure out like how they're doing what they're doing. It was just like kind of pre-internet stuff, so you really just had to study. So I would just watch it and be like, are they using a boom mic for that, or a lot,
Right.
like
You watch
like
it differently. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely just trying to understand how to like make movies.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
So
get that. Yeah.
yeah, I had a really fortunate experience while I was making that film, in that there was a DIY video store on my block, and it was run by these punks who used to have a punk record store called Reconstruction when I was a kid. So shout out to Real Life. When I went in there, they recognized me from like my teen years, and they just kind of they basically put on their computer, like on my account, like, don't charge this kid. So I would just go in and every day just rent a documentary and watch it about anything, whatever they had, and just try to like understand what I liked and didn't like and how I could utilize that or not for my film.
We've been for the show, we do some green screening. We know enough about green screening to be dangerous at this point, right? And I rewatched Raiders of the Lost Ark, and
Mhm.
from a green screen perspective, the part where they first are discovering the Wall of Souls, and it's kind of like the Wrath of God cloud scene behind him. I pulled her in. I said, "How the hell did they green screen that?" Because they did, and it was
Yeah,
1979. So yeah, you watch things differently after you've become a content creator, sort of.
Or all those
definitely.
snakes. You couldn't
Well, yeah,
CGI them in
yeah,
then
no
for
CGI.
snakes.
Yeah, so
Yeah. That's why it probably looked better. But yeah, I mean, at the time, it's or part of being a creator is also I don't know. You kind of take the magic out of it sometimes because you're just like looking at it from an artist perspective. But it's like once you open that can of worms, you can't really put it.
right. You're constantly, like you said, you're constantly going, "How did they do? All right, it had to be this kind of microphone and this kind of camera." You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And your
So
friends are like, "Shut up."
yeah,
Just enjoy
trying
it.
to watch the movie.
God, but to have the wherewithal at 25 to figure all this out, and then how in the world did you like finance the thing?
I just used my credit card, and everything was very done on the cheap. So I so basically it's like I I bought a computer because like I didn't even have an email address when I was like, I'm going to make a movie. So I asked somebody who I knew who had a computer, what computer should I get? Like, this is what I want to do. And he like sent me to the Mac store. I bought this computer on my credit card. It cost like $2,000 or something. And then at the time I was a DJ and a like party promoter. So I just kind of put $100 away every month or whatever it was and paid off the computer in like 6 or 7 months. And while I was doing that, I was like, I got a bootleg of Final Cut 1, and I was kind of learning how to like edit little things, taking clips from the internet or whatever, and just trying to learn how to edit. And then once I paid off the computer, then I maxed out my card again, and I bought a video camera. And again, it's another $2,000, and it was the same. It was like the first day I'm like, all right, I got my camera, and I went out and filmed stuff, and like it sounded horrible because I was just using the onboard mic, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
fuck, now I gotta buy like a $600 mic, and
Yeah.
and then I had to buy like I needed a windscreen, and I was like, I'm not spending $80 on like a piece of foam, So like my friend like knitted me a sock that I could like put over.
That's very punk rock.
It's
Yeah,
just
very
like we're
punk
just
rock.
trying to make things work, right? Like
Mhm.
I literally bought like a plastic squirt gun, and I put some foam on it, and then I taped it to the mic, so I had like a handheld. You know? So yeah, I mean, like there was money spent throughout, but it was definitely just like done as cheaply as possible, you know.
Yeah.
So the idea of taking this film and putting it on tour was just a genius way to increase visibility. What kind of inspired that, and what was the experience like?
Um, I mean, it was kind of there wasn't like a master plan, you know. Like I made the movie with the expectation that I would probably screen it a couple times in New York. Maybe I'd get a screening in LA, and you know, that was it. So really early on, I didn't have very high expectations. I just knew that I wanted everyone who I made who was in the film, which was almost like 90 people. I wanted all of them to see it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right, right,
I was making this
right.
for us, and you know, somewhere after I got it cut together, I kind of took a shot in the dark, and I sent it out to a few film festivals, and it started getting in. And I was just like, whoa, like people want to see this. Holy shit. Like, and the second festival that I was at was the American Black Film Festival, which at the time was like it was very mainstream, you know. It was like, I don't know if HBO was behind it. It was definitely like, you know, uh, it's just very, very mainstream, and a lot of the other film, like they flew me out, which was crazy. I stayed in a hotel, which was crazy. Like all of these things felt like, oh
Wow.
wow, like they're really treating me like I'm somebody. And then I'm hanging out with all these other directors, and you know, this was a very kind of like Tyler Perry kind of, like, well, that's what I mean when I say mainstream. Like it was just,
Right, right.
it wasn't it wasn't underground in the punk rock sense of the word, you know.
I picture
And
there's a booth with Monster Energy drink or something, you know, like
I mean,
when you
it
say
was,
that.
yeah, I mean, it was definitely very heavily sponsored. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, Monster might have been too, it was more like Alizé or something, you
Oh,
know.
okay.
It was very just
Wow.
kind of
Yeah.
like fancy black bougie.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
and So I had a screening, maybe I had two screenings, but they both sold out. And like and so I'm like in a movie theater. It's, you know, and I'm just like, well, these are like normal black people, like,
Wow.
you know. So that's when I was like, after the screening, like this guy came up to me and he's like, I don't know anything about punk, but I'm the only black guy at my bank, and I totally relate to this, you know. And I'm like, oh, this is a metaphor. Like this isn't just like, I was just making a movie about being a black punk, but this is actually a metaphor for being a person of color in this
Right.
country, you know.
Yeah.
So you could really extrapolate this. And that's, you know, that was the beginning of me thinking like, oh, I have something bigger on my hands than I thought I did, you know. And
Yeah.
then I started doing screenings in New York, and like I said, I was part of the like nightlife and the party promoting scene. So I already had like connections at bars and stuff. So I just like asked my friend, could I use your bar? I'll come in like during happy hour, do a screening. And you know, like 100 people came, and they all paid like $7. And I walked out of there with like my rent paid. And I was like, well, shit, there was like 100 people here. Like, what if I start, like I did that a few times, and I'm like, well, what if I'm already at a bar. Why don't I put some bands on, you know?
Yeah.
And like that, those kind of just like, oh, wait, like the next logical step is this, you know? Yeah. And then before I knew it, I, I think I'd screened it like 112 times in the first year. And then that kept happening to the point where it was well over 300 times in the first 3 years. And, you know, looking back, it was just like, I was just sending out, you know, faxing and sending out, you know, VHS tapes and whatever. And but I look back and I'm like, oh shit, it was screening like twice a week, somewhere in the world. That's crazy.
Well, it's been so many years and you've seen it so many times. Are there parts that you watch now that you would change because you're smarter and older?
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get it remastered. Like there's definitely like sound issues.
Or technical, right.
Yeah, this is like tech stuff that like, you know, you could technically make a better film on your phone, like it's just I have more gigs on my phone than I did on my hard drive when I made the film. So,
Yeah.
but I always say like the only thing that I would really change or that I thought would be interesting is instead of having 4 protagonists with 3 parts each, like I might have done it where I had 12 like one segment pieces just to give a little bit more slice of life. I don't know if that would have. I feel like each protagonist has a really strong piece, and like that could have stood alone to kind of be their whole piece, and maybe I could have done some extras, but I don't know. It's fine. It's like with art, it's like you do it, you put it on the world, and you gotta just like let it be what it is.
A lot of the people that I know that are really into film and, really know cameras and stuff, they hate the vertical phone. How do you feel about it and about filming vertically with the phone?
I mean, that was obviously not an issue then. I think we've gotten used to it, like as far as like if I'm watching a documentary and there's vertical, like we're used to seeing like the black bars on the side. Or
so you're not like artistically offended by that?
I think it's not ideal, but it seems like it's what it is, and what it's kind of like it's of an era. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like there's things that somebody who was watching my film the other day, and they were like, oh man, your movie looks so early 2000s. And like they were like, I forgot about like I forgot what they call it, where the lines, where the picture is made up of lines,
right.
And I guess that's not how it happens anymore, and it's like if you see footage from the 90s and before, it's like always square because it was, that was how the dimensions we had then. So it seems like it's of a time, and even though it's annoying now, like in 20 years we'll look at it and be like, oh man, remember vertical screens? Like
yeah.
And certain formats like Instagram, it has to be that way, or TikTok, it has to be that way.
Yeah. I'm not that thrilled with it, frankly, because I got some pretty decent equipment, and sometimes I feel like, oh, I made this great video. Look, now I got to make it look like shit so I can upload it on TikTok. Kind of. So.
So you kind of made the decision to kind of sever ties with the Afropunk Festival due to creative differences. Given your deep connection to the culture and vision behind the festival, did you ever consider like just starting up another one and calling it something else?
I didn't, because by the time that I had left Afropunk, well, like at that point I was 30, 31. So I already felt like punk rock is a young man's game, young person's, like I feel like I mean, I guess at 30 I was still like in touch with what was happening on the ground, but like it definitely, I think I was just like heartbroken and ready to kind of like leave it behind me, start something new. And it took me a good 10 years to come back. And it was really through the inspiration of what other kids were doing, and I don't know that I knew for sure that it would happen, but like there are interviews with me from that time where I'm saying like, there's going to be some kids who go to Afropunk and find it irrelevant and make their own thing. And I only could like predict that because that's just what has always happened, you know, and that is what happened. So once I started seeing all these other underground festivals happening, whether it be like Break Free Fest or Black and Brown or like I'm drawing a blank right now, but Decolonize or Decolonize, like there's all of these different festivals from around the country, Chigonas in the Pit, like etc. That really, I was just like, oh yeah, of course, the next generation is going to do their thing, and it's going to speak. It speaks to me in this way, the same way that Afropunk did when I started it, because it's underground, you know. So I think that if I started a fest, it would be like, I don't know. I don't know if it would be as cool as what the kids are doing, you know?
Yeah, young people amaze me with the stuff that they come up with these days.
Yeah. I mean, they're willing to get, they're more willing to be grimy. They're more willing to be poor. They're more willing to play, to ask bands to play for like, you know, gas money or whatever it is. Like at my age, when I put together events, it's like, you know, I know what it's like to be, you know, to be an adult with like adult responsibilities, and I want to pay people for, you know, accordingly. And so I usually, you know, I just did an event at USC, and it's like, well, I got this huge budget from them so that I could then pay people properly, and that was a great festival. But it wasn't like a traditional festival. We didn't. Only 3 bands played. We had like workshops and, you know, discussions, and, you know, so it was a lot of fun. It was really cool, but it was also, you know, kind of square and academic in that way.
Face it, you've got health insurance now. I mean, come on, you know, it's
Yeah, I gotta, you know, I mean, I'm still on the public plan, so.
oh, okay, there you go. All right.
We talked to this one band a while ago, the Hip Priests of the UK, and I pointed this out to them. All their early records were like "Cream My Jeans," and now they're like in their 50s, and it's a little more political. You know, it's not all that. I said, I guess you couldn't sing songs about that forever.
They kind of admitted
I mean,
that with age, yeah, you have to change your content a little.
yeah, I mean, people do, but I think that there's we should be allowed to grow, you know, and I think that the thing that I want to do, or that I try to do as far as punk is concerned, is really try to just inspire the next generation, because like I'm just not gonna be a squatter right now, you know, like that's not in the cards for me anymore.
Yeah.
When you were compiling Black Punk now, when you were getting all that stuff together, did it strike you in any way the way things have changed or the way things have stayed the same since you did Afro?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's both, you know. It's unfortunate that a lot of that Afropunk, the film, does remain to be relevant and kids can relate to it, but you know, there is I see how it's different there. You know, when I made Afropunk, there wasn't a Black punk community, or there wasn't even an avenue to talk about race in the scene, in a real kind of tangible way. And you know, the mainstream and the underground looked like very different, you know, for better or worse. And now it's like, I think there's just more room for Black people to be weird. And that's like what we need, is like, for like, everyone should have the right to express themselves the way that they want, right? And so even if I don't particularly like a certain genre of music or whatever, I can definitely see like, oh, well, these kids are, you know, like their parents are not stoked with the way these choices. You know what I'm saying? Like they're doing their thing. Like they're, you know,
It's
and
rebellion. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
I just feel like there's just more space for Black people to do what they want to do, express themselves the way they want to express themselves. And my hope is that uh, that self-expression when you're a teenager translates into like good politics as an adult, you know,
Yeah.
translates into, you know, even if it's just identity politics, you know, it's just like, even if you're just like a Black kid who likes hip hop, but we've seen enough queer hip hop artists or whatever that it's like just not a big deal to them, that it makes it so that when they're grown-ups they're not homophobic. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's just like little things that are just like, oh, like can we just all be people, you know?
Yeah, I'm so impressed with the Gen Zs and beyond. I mean, we interview a lot of young bands for the show, and they're just so inclusive. I mean, I think back to when I was growing up. I mean, we were bullied about what kind of soft drink we chose. I mean, we've come a long way. They'd be like, Marchman, you're really drinking that? You know, like I'm
Yeah.
gonna get beat up over a soda, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the quote unquote fag toilet in
Oh, yeah, exactly right.
like you cannot pee in that toilet or you're definitely gay. You know,
Yeah.
like and
Yeah.
it's just like really like I gotta pee really bad and I can't use that toilet because I don't want everyone to think I'm gay. It's like so ridiculous. I don't think that kind of stuff happens anymore.
The drinking fountain. You go to the drinking fountain and they'd like to shove your face into it. That was a thing when
Yeah.
I was growing up, you know? Yeah,
Yeah.
if you think about things like that, we've come a long way, you know. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, even we go every year to Maryland Death Fest, and honestly, the people into that kind of music are like the nicest people. You wouldn't expect it because it's all, "Rah." You know, somebody falls down in the pit, somebody's pulling them up, you know, and it's
Yeah.
nice to see that. But I usually don't see as much as the Black community there as I guess maybe it's the music, but it's beginning to be more and more, I
More and
believe.
more. I see more and more. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I mean the thing about people of color, but Black folks specifically, is I think that um Black folks want to be invited, you know? And I think that white promoters um, aren't necessarily thinking about Black people. They're kind of, in the best case scenario, they're probably like, anybody can come. It's open to everyone, you know? But like, that's not enough to get Black people to come. You have to say, like, hey, this is for you. Would you like to be here? You know? And that's the lesson I learned with starting the Afropunk community. It says it right on the flyer. It says Afro. It's in the name, you know. So when I like literally go up to when I would literally go up to a Black girl with like, you know, who probably just but aesthetically I'm looking at her and like she probably listens to Erykah Badu, she probably listens to Jill Scott or whatever, you know. And I say, hey, come to this punk festival or this punk night. Like if it was or like she's looking at it and she's seeing like there's a Black person on the card, it says Afropunk, and then a Black person is inviting me, I'm welcome here, you know. um I don't think it has to be that extreme, but it's definitely like around, you know, it if in the same respect like some tight pants long haired white dude came up to that girl and said, hey, do you want to come to this metal festival, she might go because she's being invited, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm safe here, and Black people do have to worry about their safety, you know. So
Absolutely.
if you see a bunch of white people, you know, on stage and in the crowd and what, you know, it doesn't matter what the music is, it's like, is this, am I going to get jumped for being here, you
Yeah.
know?
I don't know if you saw it. It was an article last year where I think it was Vernon Reed wrote an article about how he was never ever interviewed by Ebony or any of the Black magazines. They didn't want anything to do with him because he was
Mm,
rock and roll. And then Lenny Kravitz chimed in and said absolutely same thing. They
mm.
were just like acted like we didn't matter because we weren't playing the right style of music. I thought that was
Yeah, I mean,
fascinating. Yeah.
it is fascinating. I've had this conversation a couple times this week. I don't know why, it's so random, but
I just thought of it.
um,
Yeah, it was like last year. Yeah.
yeah, no, I was thinking about Jada Pinkett's band, Wicked Wisdom. They're awful. Like, you don't need to listen to them. But um, but I do uh try to I give her props because she could be an R&B artist and be on the charts and everyone would love her for her music. But she's choosing to make this new metal music, which
Mm,
tells me that she actually really loves this kind of music.
right.
So it's like, um, it doesn't matter, like, just on that level, I know that it's authentic, you
Yeah.
know? Like I said, it's terrible, but that's just my opinion. It could be any band that's in that genre. I don't like it.
It's terrible with integrity.
Yeah, um, and I'll take that. Like,
Yeah.
um, I'll give props for that. So, but yeah, she's probably hasn't been covered by mainstream black press on her metal band as much as she's, you know, black royalty. You
Right.
know,
Are you still actively looking for new music to like, or have you reached the age where that's kind of slowed down?
no, I'm still looking. Actually, just yesterday, I got turned on to this band called I think they're called Lamborghini Girls, and just like some British queer screaming stuff. It's great.
Yeah, there's a UK band called the Sewer Cats, and it's just this girl who drums and sings,
Mm-hmm.
and this guy who plays guitar. That's it, and they create some of the craziest noise I've ever heard. Um, so I was reading that Matt Davis of 10 Grand said, "We all die, but we don't end." When you think about your own legacy, what do you want to be remembered for most?
Mm. I mean, I guess I just would love to be respected for the work that I made. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I do think about death a lot, or I guess I do to the degree that I have all of these like projects in my head that I'm just trying to like get out, you know. So I always feel like I'm racing the clock. Um, but then I also feel like, does any of this matter? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
so I think that like it would be really cool to know that after I died, my kids or my grandkids were like reading my books or like watching my movies or
Yeah.
something like that, like just on a very personal level.
Usually they're the last ones to do that.
Yeah.
They're usually, oh, it's dead. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Can't be cool. It can't be cool, right? Yeah.
So for the high desert, it seems like that's a really personal kind of confessional memoir of your, high school early days. What stories do you think will resonate the most with people?
um, yeah, I think that's hard to say. I mean, I've gotten a lot of great feedback and it really is different, when I get like I've gotten no shortage of like white small town punks who are like, I totally relate to this. Like, I'm not black, so clearly I don't relate to that, but I do relate to being like, weird in the small town and that kind of thing. Um, and then conversely, I've gotten a lot of great feedback from people of color who relate to just being black in America and so it touches a lot of different things, and again, like kind of like with Afropunk, like people are able to do the equation and put themselves in my shoes at that, from that time period. So not everyone has the experience of dealing with Nazis, befriending Nazis, having Nazis want to kick your ass, like all of that stuff. But people do have the experience of like, you know, being stabbed in the back by people that they thought cared about them, you know, and, you know, sometimes when you present issues in more extreme modalities, it just shows you, you know, like you still see yourself in it, you know.
So how did you kind of make the jump, taking your art and becoming a tattoo artist?
Well, I mean, after Afropunk, I came to LA and I wanted to like do film. And at the time, it was like reality television was what everyone was looking for. And I tried to play the game a little bit, and I don't know, it just didn't really resonate with me, like taking meetings, pitching, like all of this stuff. It just didn't feel right. So I was kind of over filmmaking. And I was just looking for some way to express myself artistically. And I met a tattoo. I was getting tattooed, and just being in that space, I was like, oh wow, like this is, I could see like you just draw every day. You've got one customer. You've only got to worry about that person. It feels kind of low stress in that way. So tattooing was kind of on my mind. You know, I have a art background, like I went to a high school for art, so I'd taken visual art seriously in the past. And then I met a tattooer, this guy named Pedro Belugo, and he's a Black dude. He knew of Afropunk and stuff, and he was just willing to teach me based on the strength of like, I dedicated myself to making a movie. Maybe I would not let him down and like dedicate myself to the craft of tattooing, you know? So yeah, so he basically got me started. And once I got like the green light to go, I just like went hard, and was tattooing full time for at least 10 years, probably more than that. I really only slowed down during COVID. And I now I just tattoo like once a week. I enjoy it, but it's not, you know, I want to make other stuff. So it's kind of just like a financial supplement.
Right.
What do you think's the most?
And I enjoy doing it. Like I still love tattooing, and I still like love my clients and meeting new clients and stuff. So if anybody wants tattoos, feel free to hit me up.
Yeah.
I just am more limited in the amount of time that I give to it.
Have you ever had one that was really challenging, like they wanted their whole back done, or what do you think's so crazy?
Yeah, I mean, size isn't really a factor in terms of challenging. Like it's much harder if somebody just wanted like a straight line from like their shoulder to their wrist, that'd be more challenging than to do like a whole back piece of roses, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, tattooing is like, it's full of challenges. And my friend Dan Bones gave me some advice really early on, and he said like, only take on a tattoo that you know how to do with like 98% accuracy, or 95% or something. And that 5% that you don't know how to do, like that's your learning curve, you know? But like if it's more than that, you risk giving the person a really shitty tattoo, you know? But if you can 95% do a really good tattoo, and then in that 5% you're like learning something, then you're progressing, you know?
Yeah, we always say where our tattoo artists are our therapists, because while you're there, you end up telling them your whole life. And
oh yeah, that's some of my favorite stuff. I've heard so many crazy stories.
Yeah. And with us, we have a couple that we go to, and they're kind of like hairdressers in that there's rivalries
Okay.
where they know each other, and they'll be like, I could have done so much better on that than Bobby did. I don't know. Is it that way where you live too, or?
Well, I feel like tattooers are really petty, and they also like want the business. So,
Yeah.
you know, if there's a way to insult another tattooer's work, you know, a tattooer will figure out how to do it, you know. Oh, those lines are really thick. Oh, they blew that out. Oh, like they put it
Yeah,
on
yeah,
backwards, like whatever, you know.
yeah, yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
I was told by the rival guy the other one was heavy-handed as fuck. I was like, okay then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you were booked for 6 months. So what about that? That's the
yeah.
thing. No. I wanted to ask you, I know, because you said you made that statement, punk is a young man's game. What do you think about like Misfits doing shows where they take your phones or I think isn't it that aren't the Dead Kennedys touring without cello singing?
Yeah,
Is
there's
that
a lot of
right?
those buzzcocks without yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. There I mean
I know
look,
it's case by case, but yeah.
yeah, people have to make a living, you know, like I I'm really on the fence. Like I definitely understand like it sucks if your singer dies, you know, like are they supposed to pack up, you know, like,
Right,
you
right.
know, at the same time, like I really don't want to see this like Sex Pistols without Johnny, you know, like
Oh, I think that have you seen the new guy? I think he actually is really good.
yeah, I'm sure, but I just don't need to hear those songs from this, you know, because at this point it really kind of just does feel like karaoke, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so it's
His most endearing trait is that he's not John Lydon.
sure,
Yeah.
sure, and I think that they would be. Sometimes I'm like, why not write new songs and go out as a new band featuring three members of the Sex Pistols? Like
Right, right, right.
everyone's gonna come see that, and then do some Sex Pistol songs, you know, like.
Yeah.
But if you're just like pulling out the old cattle, I mean, it. Sometimes I love it. Sometimes I'm like I'm not interested. You know, I try, and it's also like I don't hold goth bands to the same like you know I don't know
Standard.
standard. Yeah, like I
Because
mean,
that last Cure album was fantastic.
yeah, no, and I've seen every goth band like there is. You
Yeah.
know, Bauhaus, like Susie, all of them. I've seen them.
Yeah.
I've Christian Death. I not Christian Death. Like, yeah, no, they did a That was weird because it wasn't. Anyways, like you know, I'll go see all these bands, but I also think that like I don't think you can go and expect it to be anything other than what it is, right? So like I went to see the Misfits play at the Forum, you know, and so I don't know how many thousands of people can fit there, but I've also seen Phil Collins play there. So
Right.
it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, so I didn't go there expecting a punk show, you know. I went to go hear those songs, you know.
Yeah.
So it's fine, whatever. People need to
I
live.
always find it hard to believe that the Static Age material didn't come out for so long because when they first made it, there was absolutely no label interest at all. I mean, and look how huge it became.
Yeah, I mean that's wild. It's I think about that same with like the Bad Brains Black Dots
Right, right.
demo. It's like how did that not get released when it came out, you know?
Yeah,
And what would have punk been if it did, you know?
right. Yeah. Hmm.
Well, anyway, we play a game with our bands on the show, so we thought we'd play with you.
Okay.
So I have 100 questions in front of me. I want you to pick five numbers that will respond to five random questions.
Okay, just pick out five numbers.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, let's do 1, 15, 69, 82, 97, and did I already do?
Yeah, we got
That's
five.
5. Yep.
Okay.
All right, number one, what is the most vivid dream you ever had?
Ooh. I do have really vivid dreams, but I can't remember anything else top. I can tell you my first memory ever is actually of a dream. And I was 3 years old. And at the time I lived in St. Lucia in the Caribbean. And I had this dream that I was like on a bench and there was like the devil was underneath the bench and the devil would like come up on the bench and then I would go under and we were kind of doing this like dance. Um,
Wow.
but I just find it interesting that like my first memory is a dream, you know?
Yeah,
That's
that's really
wild.
interesting. Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
it. Number 15. Did you ever binge a Netflix show? And if so, which one was it?
Geez, I do it every night. What was the last thing I binged? Well, I'm watching the Pit on HBO right now. That's
Okay.
enjoyable. Um, oh, our family is rewatching Stranger Things,
I
so
love
Oh,
that.
we've
cool.
been
Yeah.
we're getting ready for the next season. So
Yeah.
We
yeah,
always seem to have to do that because
The review.
it was
Yeah.
so long with the strike and everything. We were rewatching The Handmaid's Tale because that's about to come back out. I'm like, I'm not going to remember any of this.
yeah,
The darkest
exactly.
show I've ever seen is
I
Handmaid's Tale. It
I
kicks
can't
my
even.
ass.
It feels like I've watched probably into the second or third season, and it's just like so masochistic. And I feel
It's
like
crazy.
I
And the
always
art,
worry
the
that there
art.
are men that are watching it that are
Yeah.
like cheering. You know, like it's like it's one of
Yeah.
those things that I feel like you should have to pass some kind of like feminism test before you're allowed to
Yeah.
watch it.
But I love the colors and the art. You can tell that whoever directed it really knows because they took like the scary nun habits and cranked it up and made it even scarier, but yet the colors are so
Beautiful.
vivid and it's really well done, for what
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
definitely.
Up to 69. What are your feelings on taxidermy?
That's a good question because I'm vegan. Um, but what I've learned is that a lot of taxidermy is roadkill taxidermy.
Mhm.
So, and it's beautiful. It's a good question. It's beautiful, but it's also like it kind of goes against my ethics about like using animals as art or entertainment,
Right.
But I think ultimately, if it's roadkill, then it's the animal died already, and it's fine. Um, I don't have it just because I'm conflicted enough to not, but I work in a tattoo shop that like is filled with it. So it's like
Oh, okay.
I'm
Okay.
not against it so much that I wouldn't. So it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
82. What would be on your ultimate sandwich?
Now you got me thinking about sandwiches. um so um so I think like some kind of like marinated tofu with like tomatoes and maybe like some kind of grilled spinach. Um, what kind of seasoning? There's probably some kind of like maybe like some kind of curried mayonnaise or something. I don't know. I'm really just making this up right now.
Hey, it's
I'm
your
like
sandwich.
I'm
Yeah.
not a good cook, so I'm just like I just go and I order. I'm gonna shout out this coffee shop in Highland Park called Habit. They have like the best sandwiches. So I'm just like, give me whatever you guys have.
We always joke that you can tell how extra someone is by how they order their Subway sandwich because
Oh
they'll be
yeah.
like,
Oh
no, no,
wait.
that tomato, that tomato. No,
Yeah.
no, no, not that one.
Totally.
And
Totally.
you walk away thinking, oh my God, what must this person be like, outside of sandwiches?
Yeah. Um, yeah, actually I wanted to say it was Habitat. Habit is a different
Oh,
place.
Habitat. Okay. Yeah.
Habitat. But yeah, I mean, Subway, it's like it's it's always just gonna be bad. So it's like just give me, whatever. It's
The bread's not real. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I went to a Subway in India, and that was interesting because they had like four different kinds of vegetarian patties.
Okay.
Like, because they don't eat cows there, but they do have like I guess you can get chicken or turkey or something. But so
Yeah.
they have all of the fast food places have some kind of like veggie burger or whatever, but the Subway was interesting because they had like 4 different kinds.
Yeah, but even as a vegan, aren't you like, what's in that? Aren't you kind of
Yeah,
concerned?
definitely. Yeah, I think that they. I mean, I didn't eat it anyways, but because they're like also really into it's vegetarian, not vegan. So, and I'm in India. I just like I can eat real food
So
here.
you're
Like I can eat the best Indian food I could ever want. Why would I eat somewhere?
exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
97. What television commercial do you remember most from when you were growing up?
Uh, God, the one that just popped into my head was the Pogo Ball.
Oh wow.
I
Yeah.
can kind of like sing. Oh, actually, yeah, I can't sing the whole thing, but I can sing the promotional spot for 227. So maybe I remember that better.
When my son was little, he was watching TV and he came running up to me in the kitchen and telling me about some product he saw he really wanted. I said, "Well, where can you get it?" He says, "At these fine stores." I'm like,
My kid when she was little, I asked her to do like a performance in front of the I should preface by saying that we listen to a lot of podcasts on the way to school every morning. So then she wanted to do this performance. I was like, all right, get up on, in front of us and do it. And before she went into it, she did a ad for ZipRecruiter.
Oh,
So
okay. She's going places in HR. Yeah. So
yeah, exactly.
so what's the story behind the tagline, "Spooner's no fun," and what kind of made you
yeah,
embrace
this
it?
is the question that I've wanted to ask the most. Yeah.
There's a funny story about that. So my partner and I went to go see the Buzzcocks on their 40-year reunion. And, they played a great set, but they played their whole set and then it was over and they hadn't played like Orgasm Addict and like all the hits, right? And
Blasphemy.
and I'm just like, they're gonna do an encore. Like this, we're sitting here, we're waiting for like the lights aren't on, the music hasn't happened, like, oh, we're supposed to clap, like
Right.
encore. They did the encore, and I was just like, this is so fucked up. I'm like, why are we all participating in this like stupid ritual of the encore? I'm like, I'm just going off. I'm like, the Buzzcocks started as a reaction to this rock star bullshit, and now they're over here asking us to fucking clap. But like I'm just going in, like
Wow. You were
for like
charged up.
we're
Yeah.
like leaving the place, walking down the street. Like my girlfriend got like a sandwich, like and I'm still over here like complaining about the fucking encore, and she's just like, she's just like, you are no fun. Like she's like, she was actually like, you need to start a comic, call it No Fun, because you are no fun. All you do is complain.
Oh God.
And I actually, the first comic that I had published, I did the encores in Razor Cake.
Okay.
Where I just complain about encores. So that's where Spooner's No Fun came from.
Gotcha. Our phrase for that was always, "Hey, Chuck Berry's got to play Johnny Be Good." That's what we always say. We're like, they got to play the hits.
Yeah, you
Even if
got to
it's an
play it, but
encore,
like,
you
why are
got to
we
play it.
pretending like you're not going to play it?
It's a ritual. Yeah. It's like,
Like,
what if we don't play
okay, I mean, I have more respect for a band. Like, I feel like when I saw The Cure, like, they play 3 hours. They're old men. So at one point they're like, we're gonna leave, go piss, like smoke a cigarette, and we'll come back and finish up. And it's like, just tell, like, cool,
Yeah, tell it
I'm
like it
okay with the
is.
intermission.
Yeah, that's
But like,
funny.
let's not pretend like you're not coming back. It's on your set list.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you bring that up. Like I remember last year I heard the Cult went and played the whole Southern Death Cult album, or the first album maybe, or it was one of those. And I remember I watched footage of it, and to me the crowd was like, it was more like it was for them than for the crowd, because clearly people don't know those songs.
Mm,
I mean, people want to hear Love Removal Machine and Firewoman and whatever else.
yeah.
And I just thought to myself, is this self-indulgent behavior? Is it just they want to play it because they're like, this is good music. You just don't appreciate it, you know? Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate a band who will just play an album back to, front to
Front to
back,
back. Yeah.
and then, and then play like some hits afterwards. I mean, that's great. And I remember seeing what are they called? It's the band that sings Melt with You. The song,
Yeah, psychedelic, not psychedelic
that
first. Who does I'll
was this
Stop the World and Melt with You?
English,
English
Modern
beat,
English.
modern English.
modern English.
English
That's
beat,
yes,
English beat,
not
modern
English,
English.
modern English.
Modern
So
English.
they
Okay.
played their first album, which was like pretty gothy.
Yeah.
And then they played it front to back. And then at the end, they were like, okay, now we're going to play the song that you came for. And literally still pays our bills. And then they just
Right.
played that song, and it's just like,
Keep it real. Yeah.
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 Because they
So-
probably don't want to play that song,
Well, no, I mean, you're sick to death of it, I would think. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta be hard. We asked John Paul from Clutch, like, is he ever get tired of space grass? And he was like, no, there's not none. I was like surprised, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, I'm not a musician, so I don't know, but I will tell you that most of the time when I screen Afropunk, I thank people for being there, and then I leave and I come back in an hour, like,
Well, you've seen it enough time. You've done your due diligence,
yeah, it's like,
Oh, that's great.
So as a do-it-yourself artist, are there any things that you would tell like someone who's just starting out, like avoid these mistakes?
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. Yes, but I don't think I can say generically. And what I can say generically is that you have to make mistakes in order to learn. It's like part of the process. So I would say more, don't beat yourself up for making the mistakes. Don't stop because you made mistakes, just learn from them and do that. Don't do them, or do them better next time. Like sometimes mistakes are good.
So is there any project that you thought about but have just never really tackled quite yet?
Yeah, I mean, I've got like personal stuff with my dad that I can't figure out how to do a project around. But yeah, it's I don't know how you make how you make something about somebody that like nobody wants to be around, so like I don't know how you would I don't know. So yeah, there's always projects floating around. It's just whichever one takes hold,
Well, this was great. Every bit as great as I thought it would be, Mr. Spooner.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Every now and then we're like, we have to.
We got to get Spooner on. Yeah. And I think you are fun. I don't care what anybody says.
This is the Snaggletooth Rock and Roll Podcast.